Everybody. Welcome to this special Cabinet this afternoon. Thank you for attending. And for those watching at home, welcome as well. I'm Peter Fox, Leader of the Council. I'll just ask my Cabinet colleagues to introduce themselves. Perhaps from the left, Jeff.
Councillor Jeff Burrows, Cabinet Member for Social Care, Safeguarding and Health.
Phil Hobson, Deputy Leader, Cabinet Member for Community Development.
Bob Greenland, Deputy Leader, responsibilities for Enterprise, Leisure and Culture.
Phil Murphy, with Cabinet responsibility for Resources.
Good afternoon, Cabinet Member for Education and... Was that somebody's phone? Yeah. Cabinet Member for Education and Learning, Councillor Liz Hackett-Payne.
And last and quite possibly least, I'm Giles Howard, Cabinet Member with responsibility for Public Services, Environment and Housing.
Thank you very much. And we're joined by Leader of the Opposition, Dimitri.
Dimitri Petruni, Leader of the Labour Group.
Thanks very much. And obviously we're joined by officers and some other members, and we'll invite them to introduce themselves when they speak. Can I welcome one Councillor, Val Smith, here today, but also her guest, Ruth Richardson, who's shadowing Val in a councillor role. We always welcome people who want to understand better what we do in this job and spread the word. So welcome this afternoon. Apologies today, there are two, one from Cabinet, Brian Jones is still on the route to recovery, and hopefully you'll be back with us soon, but it takes a while, these long operations. It's apologies from Councillor Howarth, the leader of the independent group this afternoon. So welcome everyone. Okay, can I move on then to declarations of interest? Anybody got one they want to announce at the moment, and we need to then record them on the proper performer as usual. Councillor Greenland.
Yes, I think it's item 2 or 3 maybe. It's the CMC report, and I declare a personal interest as Director of CMC Squared, appointed by the Council.
Thank you very much. I don't think I need to, do I? No, I don't in that regard. Any others? Okay, if you find one on the way through the agenda, please speak up. That would be great. Okay, consideration of reports from select committees. Now, this is a new style of reporting from select committees, which we really do welcome. It's the first time we've seen it in this way before, and it gives us a flavour of the key areas of discussion and development and recommendation from the various select committees. And colleagues, we've all been through these to pick out clear areas for Council, for Cabinet. There's only one specific recommendation, I believe, around highways in one of these, one of the sets of reports we have before us. Colleagues, is there anything anybody wants to add to the report which we've been furnished with from Select at this point? Oh, yeah, Giles.
Yeah, only one under the, I think it's Economy and Development at the beginning, and I note there the comment regarding the LDP and provisions for tourism, and I think that's something that our new Head of Planning has undertaken to progress. And I know this week correspondence passed on from the leader. They've also had a request to consider the role of the Welsh language based on recent legislation and how that's reflected in the LDP. There is, of course, a standard review process for LDP provisions, which can take account of that, but no doubt we'll be happy to absorb those comments.
Thank you, Giles. Yes, and I noted the strong communities requesting that Cabinet Member attends with the Transport Unit to discuss overspends in that service provision. I'm sure that meeting, when that next meeting is scheduled. But
it's absolutely right to protect jobs, and I welcome the Council and the Welsh Government's stance on this. But we do have a burden, well, a kind of duty to protect taxpayers' money across the wider county. So a couple of questions. How many companies have we done this for before? Is this the first one, or is it a rare occurrence, or do we regularly do this? And also, how did this particular company become aware of the hardship relief? Is it they already know about it, or is it because we had already had extensive relationship with them when we said, oh, you could apply for this. Are we doing similar things for other businesses that might be struggling in Monmouthshire, or is it just because we had a close relationship already?
Thank you. Phil, do you want to try first?
It certainly isn't a regular occurrence. Bob might want to comment on the relationship with the company. He's had more to do with that than I have. But it's open to any company, and it's no secret. It's open to any company who finds themselves in this position. But it doesn't necessarily follow that if they make that application, we're going to grant it. If we thought that making a refund to this company would just reduce their liabilities and they would go to the wall anyway, we wouldn't do it. It's because of the efforts that has been taken place there to ensure that that is not the case that we're prepared to entertain at this time. But I wouldn't want anybody to think that if they make an application, it's automatically going to be granted, because it very definitely isn't.
I'd go further than that and say it's a very rare occurrence. In fact, I can't actually remember any. I can remember applications before, but I don't remember an application that has got this far in the process. As far as did we tell them about it? No, we didn't. They actually must have picked up the information. I mean, it's readily available, isn't it? It's public information that there is such a scheme. And they approached us about it. So they and any other business is able to do that. But it is extremely rare that we would find circumstances where we would support an application like this.
Okay. Right, thanks very much, everyone. So recommendations then, I'll move into 2.1, that the relief of £75,000 is granted in this case, limited to an amount that ensures that the company remains within its state aid thresholds, and 2.2, that the 25% relief to be met by the authority, £18,750, is funded from earmarked reserves, as written there. And so all in favour of those two recommendations? Yes, thank you very much. Okay, we move then on to another business-connected report, and that's supporting the competitiveness of Monmouthshire businesses. Councillor Bob Greenland.
Again, an unusual report. Skew Trade is probably not a name known to many of us, although within the economic development arm of Monmouthshire Council, it is something which we've been following up for probably a couple of years now. We were originally directed, or rather they were directed to Monmouthshire on advice that we were a council that was looking to promote businesses, particularly using digital technology. And they came to us with a proposal which was, and I believe it still is, unique. It is particularly suited to Monmouthshire because of the number of SMEs, small and medium enterprises, that we have in Monmouthshire, and the number of businesses that we are aware of that trade on the internet using platforms such as Google and Amazon. The proposal that has come from the founders of Skew Trade is for an application which will give vital information to companies that are looking to trade on the export market via the internet. If you trade on the internet, you may well know the British market well. You know how much you can sell an item for, you know your costs, all of your costs, and you can price your goods accordingly. If, on the other hand, you are looking to expand into the European and, in fact, global market, then there are a lot of unknowns that you need really to know to take proper or make a proper business decision. So, for instance, you need to know the current exchange rate. You will need to know in the country that you're looking to export into what the market is like, what prices maybe could be born in that country, and even down to the point at which how much is postal costs going to cost you. And so the company SKUTrade has developed an app which effectively gives businesses the ability, almost at the touch of a button, to calculate accurately their costs in selling out into Europe and beyond. Huge advantage that will be for any business. And when they came to us, they had already established a prototype which was being used for a company selling electrical parts into Europe. And once that company started using their prototype app, they saw both an enormous increase in the amount that they could sell into Europe and a vast increase in their profitability, simply by using all the information, the current information on hand. So if it works for one business, it'll work for a whole range of businesses. But developing that app for other businesses is a large project. And when they came to us, they were looking for help to launch this app. And effectively, what we are now taking forward to a next step is our further talks with this company. You will see that one of the recommendations is that we should undergo further due diligence tests, and that only when those are complete will we move to a possible point where, if Cabinet approves this today, we would seek the approval of the Chief Officer, the 151 Officer, in consultation with the two Cabinet members for Finance and myself. So only then would we go forward with this loan proposal. Already the work that has been done has given confidence of officers, and we're again talking about Peter Davis principally here, that this loan can be repaid within the period of 5 years. But the loan will be outstanding and will be repayable for as long as it takes. So what does it do for Monmouthshire businesses in particular? Well, we have negotiated a discount which Monmouthshire-based businesses can get in taking this app and taking it forward. And we need actually a trial number of businesses to take it forward to properly develop the Finnish app. And I should also mention, with my CMC hat on, is that CMC has helped in the development of the app to date. So this council has already said that one of our priorities is economic development. Well, this is actually putting our money where our mouth is. This is actually going out and helping local Monmouthshire businesses where we think we have a particular strength in digital technology and in small businesses, and taking those businesses forward. So for that reason, I have confidence in bringing this report to colleagues today. And I do stress again that that doesn't mean that they're going to get this money. It has to go through further due diligence tests. And it is money that it's not a grant, it will be repaid for further ongoing use. I won't go into the details. I'm sure that the leader will go into the details of the specific recommendations when we come to the close of the debate, but that is it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Bob. Did you describe then a little bit about how local businesses are going to take part in this as a sort of a pilot there?
Yes. Businesses in Monmouthshire would be or can access the discount on the use of this app, and it would obviously come through Monmouthshire County Council that the applications could go forward. This is specifically an opportunity for Monmouthshire-based businesses, not for businesses outside Monmouthshire, and so we would monitor that any companies that took up this offer would be based here in Monmouthshire. I should also add that SKUTrade will also be based here in Monmouthshire and is likely to bring local jobs as well.
Thanks, Bob, for expanding on that. So there's a real benefit, not just for that company, but for the many companies that are going to benefit from it, and those initial ones who are going to have further advantages by having a discount, basically. Okay, it just makes sense. It falls straight into our priority of enterprise and creating jobs. Cabinet members, Phil.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to welcome this. Really, this is a really strong opportunity for businesses in Monmouthshire to get behind this. It's going to give them a wonderful head start in the marketplace, particularly abroad, and they should grab it with both hands, quite frankly.
Got any other cabinet, Liz?
Thank you very much. Yes, I support it as well, but I think obviously it's early days yet, but there would have to be a great promotion to get people to be aware of it. But also, I think it's going to be quite difficult to be able to restrict its use just to the county of Monmouthshire. And again, that's something for the future. And I'm sure that will be looked into, but I think that will be quite difficult.
Okay, Giles? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Lead. Only one question, and again, I support the potential for Monmouthshire businesses to thrive and develop on the back of this. Again, it's an unusual report, isn't it, like the last one, and I feel a bit like Dragon's Den without the pile of cash. And part of me is wondering why is this company coming to the local authority rather than, or perhaps it's in addition to, seeking maybe venture capital or traditional loans? So I can't say this is something that I've seen before, but otherwise, in terms of the principle, yeah, great.
Thanks for that. Just on your part, I think it's only the Monmouthshire businesses get the discount at the moment. I think that, we hope other businesses would use it and make it successful. So, Kath, do you want to come in and pick up on the points that Giles just made there?
It's just to say that this proposal actually adds a lot of value in terms of what we're delivering at the moment. We've got the e-commerce activities that are taking place in Abergavenny, which are just starting to gain ground there. We've got the new ICT business exploitation programme that Welsh Government are pushing through in terms of Superfast Cymru. That's about to start in early autumn. We've also got the iCounty Digital County Aspirations, and also the link to the Superfast Britain Connection vouchers that businesses can take advantages of. So it really does align very strongly with our digital enterprise agenda. In terms of investors, they are looking further afield, and we were actually able to put them in touch with a company that we'd met as a result of hosting the Malaysian visitors earlier in the year. And we've been able to put them in touch with some angel investors in London. So they are looking wider. I do, however, feel this is a real opportunity for Monmouthshire in terms of our online opportunities, and also bearing in mind that we are now a big growth sector in terms of tech businesses and one of the leading counties in the South East Wales. So thank you.
Thank you, Kath. Any other cabinet points? No, Councillor Petruni?
Yes, principally I'm not against investing to make a return. I suppose that's the core underpinning this once the due diligence is done. But I didn't feel Councillor Howard's point, and I agree with him, was really answered. Why aren't they going to the open market for their complete finance? Why particularly taxpayer money? And the other second question is, well, I noticed we're using the Invest to Redesign reserve, which is to redesign local services for taxpayers across the whole county. And actually what we're using it is for affect corporate welfare. I'm just wondering what's the logic behind using that reserve, particularly given it's meant to about redesigning local services for local people.
Who's going to have a stab at that?
Okay.
Oh, you're going to have one. Well, Bob.
I disagree with your description of corporate welfare. This is a move which will benefit the whole of the county. If we can provide opportunities for businesses to prosper, we provide jobs for the whole of the county. If we provide a few jobs for the whole of the county, then we put extra money into the economy of the county. So it makes absolute sense for us to take an interest, particularly given the priorities which we've set, which is economic development. And I did mention it at the outset, is that the company was recommended to come to Monmouthshire because it is recognised that we have aspirations towards growing businesses that are involved in digital technology. So it makes sense for them to have come to us, and it makes sense for us, as Kath Fallon has said, for us to signpost further investment from elsewhere, which is appropriate. We have the opportunity of bringing a business to Monmouthshire which can directly benefit Monmouthshire businesses. And you know, if I was thinking about setting up an internet business and I wanted to export and I was wondering where to site that business, and Monmouthshire said, well, look, if you site it here, we can give you a competitive advantage because we can give you a discount on a very useful piece of software which you won't get from elsewhere. I would actually think about coming to Monmouthshire, and that's what we're about.
And I think this is where we've got to get away from that old sort of thinking, Dimitri, that, you know, private sector and public sector can be partners, because if we grow the one, it helps benefit the other. And that's the whole, you know, that's how we have to work together. That's the whole concept of a thriving city region, working with business partners to make things better for local people in their areas. Because if business do well and jobs are created, that's a real plus for some communities who can't get jobs. You know, so we've got to get away from that old-fashioned mindset. And so this is actually using money for the real benefit of one of our key priorities of trying to create jobs and stimulate further enterprise. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, just a simplistic view on why they've approached Monmouthshire as opposed to banks or venture capitalists. I suspect the cost of capital is a lot cheaper in terms of getting it from Monmouthshire County Council than it would be from either the banks or venture capitalists. But
have we? You know, how do we benchmark then our level of funding? You know, are we charging enough for this support then? I mean, we have to be, you know, as you've raised that, Mark, I just want to sort of flesh that out a bit.
Well, it might be useful to the arrangement is termed a loan in the papers there, a 5-year repayable loan from the businesses that take advantage of this. It's actually a little more complicated than that, in that it's actually viewed as an affiliate fee, so we actually gain more extensively than 90,000 if the business does well. But obviously we secure our 90,000 from either the concessions on Monmouthshire businesses or the more widest concessions if the Monmouthshire business taker isn't sufficient to repay.
And that's really helpful, because it needed to be explained out there. That was good. Okay, Paul, is there anything you wish to add?
I think Mark probably just covered some of the territory that I was going to, so I won't look to cover that again. I think it's good that this type of startup company, through conversation, is keen to develop here, to move here. If this company, over the course of the next few years, manages to become a 5, 6, 7 person company, forget 10s, 20s, 30s, I'll take 5, 6 and 7 jobs in the digital creative space any day of the week. That in itself is a benefit, other than the affiliate fee that Mark has described. So there is a potential return to Monmouthshire County Council. The added premium that we get from this investment is the discount that goes to up to 500 companies in Monmouthshire that choose to avail themselves of this service. Clearly, we're not interested at this point in time in an equity stake. That's coming back to Councillor Howard's sort of position. If we were Dragons Den with or without the cash, we tend to be interested. We'll offer you 5%. No, we'll take 50. Thanks very much. That's not where this company needs to be, and indeed wants to be. So our exposure is limited. There is a very real possibility of a meaningful return to the council. We have opened up a discounted opportunity for up to 500 local businesses, and in response to Councillor Payne's point, it's not for us to prevent any business in the UK or further afield wishing to use this platform. What we've secured is discount for Monmouthshire businesses. So I hope that's helpful.
That's right. Okay, Dimitri, you were signalling. Do you want to come back in? Quick one.
Quickly, on Mark's point, Mark Havcroft's point, of course, venture capitalists set an interest rate. I'm not a businessman, but it's set an interest rate because it's a risk. And therefore, using taxpayers' money is, I don't know, the interest rate should be consummate with a risk, I would have thought. And so we should be mindful of that. I just want to say that. And also, I'm not against, as I said, principally, I'm not against return on investments. What I'm asking about is the investor resign reserve, which was my understanding, which you guys have told me before, is about redesigning local services in these times of austerity so they can better deliver services to local people. Absolutely brilliant. But we're using that money that's meant to invest, you know, in local services, redesigning them to better suit our residents' needs for an investment. That's my point. I'm just wondering why we use that reserve.
Okay. Right, well, does anybody want to, Mark, you want to have a final stab at that now, and then we'll move on?
I appreciate the dimension to it that actually local authorities are trying to sustain services in a declining settlement period. I think the focus was very much on the investment side of it rather than necessarily the redesign, although I appreciate the points that were made insofar as, well, this has wider aims to our businesses. I don't think there's any reserve that I would suggest is any more appropriate to it, but I do understand that the narrative attached to investor redesign you may think might be more ring-fenced to council activities.
Yeah, and I think we mustn't forget about those priorities. Yes, we have got, you know, preserving locally accessible services. That's exactly what you're saying. But we've also got one about, you know, stimulating enterprise economic growth and creating jobs. You know, we've got to look at all of the whole picture, the whole rounded picture of this. And I think this is a good way to align to that key enterprise priority. Okay, I'm going to move us to the recommendations then in 2.1, and that is to approve a pre-revenue repayable loan to enable Monmouthshire businesses discounted access to a unique online platform that supports growth in sales and profitability whilst providing dedicated support, training and advice. And 2.2, upon successful conclusion of all due diligence, legal and procurement matters, that delegated authority is given to the Chief Officer of Enterprise and Head of Finance in conjunction with the Cabinet Member for Enterprise and Cabinet Member for Resources to sign a memorandum of agreement and associated contract and advance pre-revenue funding of 90,000 to Screwtrade. And finally, that the 90,000 repayable loan is secured from the Investor Redesign Reserve initially, with reimbursement of the reserve recouped over a 5-year period through commissions generated from businesses subscribing to the platform. All in favour of that? Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Kath. Okay, we'll move on into the next report, and that is the CMC squared outturn position.
Thank you, Leader. Well, I guess it's stating the obvious, isn't it, that this isn't the report that I'd have liked to have been presenting at this time. But I think to fully understand the position, we need to go into it in some more detail than that bland statement. Let's go back to the start of our community interest company. We set it up so that it had the ability to do work in the community which would benefit the community. But we recognized that to do it, it needed to have an income stream of its own. And in those early days, we were looking at the government incentives, which were high at the time, for the FIT repayments on photovoltaic panels on roofs. Now, before we could really get our schemes underway, the government reduced and made that income stream not viable. We have, however, over the years managed to get some small income streams, but the company has always been at a disadvantage in terms of delivering on its community benefits to the full by not having that regular income stream. And when we last reported to Cabinet, we spoke about the opportunities for software development, which we felt could provide that income stream. And so we moved forward with the approval. of the council into software development. And I guess it's fair to say that it's been a pretty steep learning curve. And I think what we have discovered out of it is that actually a community interest company is not the right vehicle for taking it forward, because there are what are called TECL rules, which means that the company can only have 20% of its income from sources outside of its sponsoring organisation, outside of MCC. And very early on, we were getting a lot of interest from commercial concerns to develop software applications for them. And we could not have gone forward in the way that we wished to in a community interest company. But the one big piece of software that we did take on was an internal piece of software, which has now come to be known as Flow, and is a very comprehensive operating system for social care. I think we underestimated the costs, first of all, of developing that app, and the difficulties in terms of management of taking that forward. So I think what we have discovered from it is that software development is certainly an area where you can make a good income for the council, but it isn't something which a small community interest company can properly run itself. So let's look at the Flow project, because that is the project which has given rise to the losses which occur on the accounts. We underestimated the cost of developing that that piece of software. But nevertheless, even taking all the costs that we have accrued on that, we still have a piece of software which is now in use by social care. And previously, the piece of software that they were doing was costing them £130,000 a year license fee. It didn't do most of the things that they wanted it to do, but it was capable of doing lots of things that they didn't want it to do. Instead of which, we have now designed for them a software application which does exactly what they wanted to do and will have paid for itself in 3 years. But in so doing, CMC Squared has got on its books £140,000 loss. So we have to look at it in the round, and in the round, the position, as far as our social care directorate is concerned, is a very encouraging one. If you can make an investment and pay for it within 3 years, that's got to be good business. But much more than that, there is the question of the intellectual property rights of this application. And it is now quite clear from the interest that we've had both from other councils and from commercial operators that with probably a phase 2 of this application, we will be able to sell this application elsewhere, bringing further income. So the long-term position is a very good position. The short-term position, looking at it very solely from the CMC Squared position, shows this £140,000 loss. So I think members need to have the whole picture when receiving this set of accounts. But as well as this, the report also is looking at how we deal with the loss at the moment and how we regard the future of software development going forward.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody want to add to this at this point? Kath, anything you want to add at this point? No, I think, Bob, you summarised that very well in a very open and honest way. I mean, I think moving into the software side of things did make a lot of sense, and we certainly got the expertise. However, those TECL rules do stifle it and strangle it in many ways. But the product that we have delivered through doing that, as you've just explained, has massive potential, and in the longer term can recoup monies and drive more and more. However, we are left with this initial this deficit on the balance sheet, which we've got to manage and deal with. And the board will need its deeper discussions around its future purpose and in regard to this side of its business anyway, because we don't lose sight of the social benefit side of things that we were always there to drive. However, yeah, we have got a situation here. It's not all doom and gloom, because actually there's a fantastic product come out of this which could be really, really amazing for a lot of people, and certainly the feedback initially is pretty fantastic, I think, from our own staff in using this product. So we had the expertise, we utilised them, and we've got a good product. And so that can repair some of the damage. But there is a deeper discussion within CMC Squared board, I think, about the future and how that moves forward. So we are where we are, and that gives a good summary of it, and the recommendations there before us. So, colleagues, anybody wish to add at this point?
Just one point I think is worthy of mention. Yes, it doesn't look that brilliant until you look behind it. But I was very encouraged by the fact that the Welsh Government have taken a considerable amount of interest in Flow as well. I think the Minister's been here twice to have a look at it, and his 20-minute visits have turned into an hour and a half. There's obviously, we've got something really quite considerable here, and I think the longer-term outlook is very bright indeed.
Thank you, Phil. Councillor Burrows.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Really, just what I want to add is really just a follow-on to the report of last week, when we actually made reference to the investment needed in Flow, and really it's almost a vote of thanks to my colleague cabinet member for voting that through, knowing it was going to contribute to a certain amount of discomfiture today in bringing this report forward. I had the pleasure yesterday of reminding the Minister for Social Services, when we met discussing the Raglan project, where we were with this. This is up and running. It is being received with glowing reports by those individuals that are using it already. It meets all the needs for the Act coming through next year, and with opportunity to remind the Minister that other options are years away. So we have great opportunity. It doesn't help in this particular report and the set of circumstances and the cause and effect of actually seeing this particular IT project fly. But certainly, we are where we are with this, but there are some great prospects going forward with this information and those principles involved in generating that kind of IT, because clearly we're setting a precedent here showing that if you actually bring in practitioners right from the very beginning, you can build something exactly to your needs, and certainly doing it with freeware opportunity, avoiding licenses, we've got a great prospect ahead. So a little bit of discomfiture now, but good news going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor Petruni.
So listen to the cabinet there. We're only talking. You would think we're only talking about one product, but we're talking about the outturn position of CMC Squared as a company. And last year, we made a £20,000 profit, which I distinctly remember was based on not fulfilling, I think, 3 or 4 senior jobs within the company itself. If it had done, it would have been in a loss. And so we were assured at the time, I remember being assured at the time that, we'll make money this next year, and the year after that we'll make more money. And here we are next year, £140,000 making a loss, picked up by a taxpayer from the Priority Investment Reserve. And so what I'm saying is, I'm not doubting the merits of Flow. I mean, I'm not an expert in the Flow program itself, but I don't doubt the sincerity of cabinet members when they discuss it. But where are we with this company? We cannot keep on doing this. We're in times of austerity. We're already using Redesign Reserve to fund another software development of sorts for a private company. And now we've got £140,000 we're funding again from the taxpayer. I mean, this cannot continue, surely, given the pressures on councils and council services.
I think you said you didn't understand flow. I mean, you just need to go back. This is something we designed for ourselves, which will displace an ongoing annual licensing fee of over £120,000. Yeah, so you're very clear then that the flow will actually save the council a huge amount of money and offer a better system. The vehicle which developed flow has incurred a cost as a result of it, and that's where we've got to have a discussion. So it's not about investing in apps is a problem or anything. And now we've got to discuss about the nature of the business here, and the product which has come out of it is good, but is it the right business to deliver that sort of stuff? And that's the discussion the board will be having in the longer term about what its purpose needs to be going forward.
Yeah, you're quite right. We need to reevaluate CMC squared. Let's be honest about it. We were looking for an income stream for it to do the good works that it is already doing. And let's not forget the good works that have been and are still ongoing. Look at The Apprentice, which is providing job opportunities in the construction industry, and that will be widening across other industries as well. So it is doing a lot of good work, but it does need to have a secure income base going forward. We've reached the point at which this software development is too big for CMC squared. So we need to reevaluate it. We could close it down. But let's just remember as well that we are also at the moment looking at the future of discretionary non-statutory services and how we're going to run those in the future. Now, perhaps a community interest company is the answer. Perhaps it isn't, but perhaps it is. We would be very foolish if tomorrow we close this company down and found in 3 or 4 months' time that, well, it's got a good idea. The best way of moving forward is a community interest company. So what I'm proposing, and I will be writing to the non-executive directors, and I should say that we've had huge support from 3 very experienced commercial non-executive directors as we've moved forward, and I will be writing to them later today to report on this meeting. And I will also be saying that for the moment, we just want to go very slowly on what we're doing, not move into anything new, and await the outcome of the council's review of its non-discretionary services and see if there is a place for a community interest company such as CMC squared.
Okay, thank you, Rob. I'm going to move us in then into the recommendations, and there are several here. There's no other officers want to come in on this. You didn't want to come on this, Paul? No, or did you?
I can do. There's different ways of sort of describing the conversation that we've already had. I think there's a rather simplistic way of describing it also. If we wanted CMC squared to stay, I think, in the software development business, I think it's reasonable to presume that the council would have to consider making a significant investment. That doesn't seem the right thing to do at this point in time. We have a very busy agenda ahead of us in the next 2 to 3 years, and probably what we need right now is focus. I think in terms of the technology aspects, it is also fair to say that we probably have got the risk-reward algorithm a little bit out of balance in terms of the council and CMC squared, or the reward is with the council, or the risk is with CMC squared. If I connect this item, certainly on the technology side, to the previous item, and I'll stick with flow by way of example. Councillor Petruni is right. It's more than flow, but it's the example of the day. If we had chosen to develop that in-house, it would have cost us exactly the same amount of money as it's cost us now, and we would have funded it from, guess where? The Invest, Redesign Reserve, which we would have replenished over a 2 to 3 year period from the savings that product would derive for the council through effectively deleting license fees that we're paying to a third party right now, and I have to say with some confidence, onward sales to other UK councils, which I think may well be forthcoming sooner rather than later. So I'd encourage you to think about the risk-reward algorithm. Personally, I understand and agree with what Councillor Greenland has just said. CMC Squared was set up for a whole host of reasons. Software development wasn't part of its core business or core offer initially. I think some of those core reasons for setting it up still have legitimacy. So a point to reflect is a good point. That's now. But you do have, as a council, some real delivery, even at this point in time, that you would not have had if CMC Squared wasn't created. And just by one example that is not Flow, you mentioned it yourself. Kathy, your apprentice is what, running close to 100 apprentices now? Yeah. 100 apprentices created through the establishment of that vehicle that I'm not sure we would have done if we hadn't created the space to do it. Equally, we probably have charged in excess of £140,000 worth of officer time, I would have thought, to the accounts of CMC Squared over the last 3 years. If we hadn't done that, the council would be carrying it through its core budget. So I think you have to see this in the round. Is this a 10 out of 10 performance? Absolutely not. But there is still performance in this entity. And I think if we continue to take a medium-term perspective, I think the council will derive benefit.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, I'm going to move then to the recommendations in 2.1 then to receive the final 3-year end financial position for CMC Squared, I didn't read quite right, for the period ending 30th of September 2014 and the activities and community value delivered in the period. To receive the draft outturn position for the 6-month period ending 31st of March 15 and the forecast outturn position for the 6-month period ending 30th of September this year, and subject to the finalisation of the outturn position that the accumulated losses made by the company up to the period ending 30th of September 2015, currently estimated at £140,000, be funded via a contribution from the Priority Investment Reserve, and that the results of a strategic review and proposed repurposing of CMC Squared be reviewed and subsequently brought in front of Cabinet for consideration. That a review is commissioned of the authority's future approach to software and systems development. All in favour of all of that? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Kath. Okay, we'll move on to the last item today, and that is about sewage management at the Livestock Centre. Can I just advise press and public that there is an exempt element of this report, and when we need to stray into that, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave. But for the first part of the report, it is in open committee. It's only when we talk about finances we have to move into the exempt area. Okay, so I'll hand over to Councillor Greenland again.
Right, I thought the whole report was in, or the discussion of ongoing. I'm just trying to think how I introduce it without straying into areas of exempt.
Can I just seek some guidance then? Because if you thought that, I'm conscious that the exempt report is the financials, but I'll take a sounding from either Rob or Chief Exec.
Yes, Leader. Robert Tranter, the monitoring officer here. Put simply, if you're going to discuss the exempt paper at all, then obviously you need to consider the exemption certificate that Roger's prepared. If you agree with that, i.e. that it should be heard in closed session, then that's the conclusion that you come to. If it's going to put Councillor Greenland in difficulty discussing this report without straying into that exempt paper, then I suggest that you consider now whether to make whether to go into committee session and exclude the press and public.
I'm conscious that the papers as are out there, but the discussion may not reflect quite what's exactly in those open papers. I can see your predicament there. Councillor Greenland, Chief Executive, have you got a perspective?
Again, I feel like a parrot today. I wouldn't dissent too much from the view that Robert's just offered you. The reason that you have a two-part report here is that you are going to have a conversation which in part relates to a potential commercial negotiation. So it's not so much about numbers, it's about the fact that we may have, not even a position of dispute. There is negotiation here, and you will not want to disclose the characteristics of the position that you may choose to take with a third party. I think that's the real issue, which has given rise to the second part, the exempt part of the paper. So I think, Councillor Greenland, you need to reflect on whether you can disassociate that part from an introduction. If you can't, I would agree with Rob's advice. You may as well think about moving into committee from the first moment of the conversation.
Okay, obviously the background information is before us, and that's already out, and nothing can be added much to that. The depth of the discussion we need would contain that more sensitive discussion. So I think I'm minded at this point, members, to move the discussion of this whole report in committee. However, the background information is available as members and public have seen. So can I have agreements that we move into committee to deal with this report, the discussion on this report? All in favour of that? Thank you. I'm sorry for that, ladies and gentlemen, but those, well, you're already moving. So thank you for attending today. And can we make sure that